The Inflation Reduction Act just passed the House vote, functionally being sent to Biden's desk, where it's guaranteed to be signed into law. It's undoubtedly the most impactful climate bill in all of the US's history, which, if we're being honest, is a small bar to jump over. However, the bill still provides real and actionable mechanisms that will undoubtedly lower the greenhouse gas emissions of the country. The bill will also keep the main climate goal of the Biden's administration alive, a 50% reduction in CO2 emissions by 2030. That's a significant feat, and the bill alone, with the investments it procures for clean energy deployment, will mitigate further warming due to climate change, doing so by decreasing the amount of carbon emitted into the atmosphere, which, in a sense, is a fancy way of saying that this bill helps to save future lives that could have been lost due to the climate crisis. But, and there's always a but, that doesn't mean that the work is over. It is true that this bill could not have been passed without a year's worth of activism and advocacy aimed at Biden and the Democratic Congress to keep their promises on the climate alive. That's a worthy thing to be celebrating, and as they say, we cannot let perfect be the enemy of good, but we can't let good enough taint our vision either, because good enough still means that people will die due to the climate crisis. People, mind you, who will have contributed the least to the crisis itself, and those lives can be saved with better and more robust action. The downside of the bill being more of an investment mechanism that provides funding for clean energy deployment is the fact that it doesn't limit fossil fuel usage at all. In fact, the bill itself actually increases the amount of public land that can be used for fossil fuel extraction. That facet of the bill will directly impact frontline communities, making it so that their lands will be the first ones to go for new fossil fuel projects. There's a reason why I say that the best course of climate action is to actually stop greenhouse gases from being emitted in the first place, which basically means that there can't be any new fossil fuel projects going forward. But this bill falls tremendously short of that. In fact, it can even be argued that this bill actually harms people in large part because it opens up a large amount of public land to extractive industries. And if it's not clear to people, then just understand that climate action also means protecting and healing the natural world around us. Whereas it's absolutely true that those real reductions in greenhouse gases matter, the continual harm to frontline and indigenous communities cannot be overlooked just because this bill provides investments to renewable energy. Simply put, climate action cannot and it should not merely paint a green hue over the injustices that have historically occurred due to fossil fuel extraction and its transportation, which is a way for me to say that we can't throw the people who protect our natural world under the bus because it means a compromise of a clean energy investment bill can get through. Yes, this is a victory for the climate, but it's not a victory for truly intersectional forms of climate action that we desperately need to usher in a more equitable and sustainable world. As Tara Houska, an indigenous rights activist, tweets, indigenous peoples hold 80% of the world's remaining biodiversity. We are the canary in the mine of humanity. Yet, just as we aren't at the world's decision-making tables on the climate crisis, we are an afterthought in the drafting of the first major U.S. climate bill. Mother Nature doesn't deal in U.S. dollars. Where is her voice? The IRA is a step that garners climate reductions, but it's one that tosses out public lands to extractive interests, which will only harm frontline communities much more harshly than anyone else. It's also a bill that obfuscates the point of climate action, making it an issue of investments, which it is to a small degree, but climate action also requires much more. It requires reparations for the most vulnerable who will be impacted by the crisis, but it also requires protecting the environment of the people most impacted by the crisis. It requires environmental and climate justice, and it requires that the path to a sustainable world is a path to a more equitable one. The bottom line is that the climate crisis will harm the most vulnerable people around us, and those people contributed the least to the climate crisis. Those lives are still going to be lost if more robust action is not taken in the coming years. Don't be wrong, the Inflation Reduction Act is an important step towards climate action, with it providing clean energy credits so that all people can access clean energy more readily, robust investments to ensure that clean energy options will be competitive in the near and long-term future, and also healthcare subsidies and drug pricing reform that makes medical care more affordable to people. That's worth celebrating in of itself, and praise should be directed at the Democrats because they got this important piece of legislation done, helping actual people in the process. The shortcomings of this bill should not stop people from celebrating it at all, but it will still be wise to be cognizant of those shortcomings and to still engage in actions that will make sure that frontline communities do not continually get harmed because of new fossil fuel projects. Additionally, we still need to fight for robust climate reparations to be delivered to the people who did the least to contribute to the crisis, and that means to the peoples of the developing world. And that is undoubtedly an important aspect of climate action and one that still needs to be fought for. Time is running out and we can't afford to get complacent. Yes, I'm conflicted over the IRA. There has been a wave of relief that has fallen over me when thinking about the climate crisis, with a renewed sense of hope that absolutely rejuvenates my sense to continue fighting. There's still a part of me that feels for the Black people, for the indigenous people, for the frontline communities that will be impacted by new fossil fuel projects that this bill might spur. We can't lose sight of that fight either, because as always, the best type of climate action is action that seeks to keep fossil fuels in the ground.